Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Sunday, the 6th of December 2020, and we're publishing the first episode in a new series of Bitcoin versus gold and silver. Each Sunday we will publish a new episode until the series concludes in approximately 8 weeks' time. Now, we appreciate not everyone is interested in Bitcoin, but it is a competitor to gold and silver. And so we seriously suggest you listen to this series so that you can at least appreciate a competitor resource to our much cherished belief in precious metals and what, if anything at all, can be done about it. So here goes. For some weeks, we've been slowly introducing Bitcoin, or at least the appreciation of Bitcoin, to our members for good reason. Many of our subscribers have written to us stating that there never has been so much currency printed in the history of the world. We have a global pandemic affecting literally millions of businesses and livelihoods across the planet. And yet gold, although having recently reached an all-time high, is still much lower than many expected the price to be, and silver could only muster 3/5 of its previous high. So what is going on? Now, we would argue there are many reasons for this, some of which include: 1, dollar depreciation has not been as great as many had anticipated that it would be. After all, the likes of Peter Schiff has been calling for its total collapse for decades now. And his message has resonated with a wide audience, though we think it's nonsense. At least for now. 2, the printing of vast quantities of money, at least short term, props up ailing economies. It may prove different long term, but currently, we're still in the short-term to medium-term cycle. And it also boosts competitor investment avenues, such as stock markets, for example, which currently, certainly in the United States, are now at all-time highs. And 3rd, inflation has not yet occurred. And in fact, many would argue, including the likes of Harry Dent, but he's not alone, that deflation seems the most likely short to medium term. Certainly by economic default, not intent. And gold and silver with it tends to perform better during inflationary times than deflationary times. Now, there are many other reasons, but one which we are focusing on in this series are competitor products to gold and silver. And one in particular, as you can tell by the headline, Bitcoin. Now, those of us on this channel, let's be totally honest and transparent. Most, if not all, are essentially gold and or silver bulls and bugs, particularly long term. And to even hear that there could be a competitor is outrageous propaganda spread by the deep state to undermine our belief and confidence in precious metals. Now, whether or not that is true, quite frankly, has little or no bearing on what we're discussing here. In fact, one could argue that if this is true, then we should pay even more attention to the likes of Bitcoin or similar alternatives, as the so-called deep state is attempting to push that agenda, and their power to influence is far greater than yours individually or ours. So this is a subject that we ignore at our peril. Now, within the investment world, there are many competing products: bonds, equities, treasuries, precious metals, other commodities, cryptocurrencies, fine art, and antiques, etc., etc. There are many more I'm sure you'll all think of. We are going to essentially, in this series, look at gold and silver, which we shall class as one, but could fall, frankly, under the whole gamut of precious metals. Certainly, as far as investment purposes are concerned, though, gold and silver tend to dominate. And cryptocurrencies, or frankly, for reasons we'll highlight in episode 2, Bitcoin in particular. In simple terms, it being the most popular and the one with by far the largest market capitalization and influence at this moment around the world. Now, to put all this into perspective, in value terms, the equity market is worth approximately $85 trillion. The value of the gold market is based on 197,000 tons of gold ever mined, which cumulatively is approximately worth around $3.7 trillion. Now, for varying reasons, these figures will not be 100% correct because, of course, one cannot physically prove every single ounce that has been mined. And it's also difficult to calculate exactly what level of gold holding that is available for immediate transference into cash if that was required. Because a lot of gold is invested in jewelry, which people will probably and possibly never trade in. Religious artifacts, similar situation. And approximately 10% of gold is used for industrial purposes, some of which is salvageable, but some not. So in terms of coins and bars and gold, physical gold used for investment purposes, in other words, easily acquired at the right price, it would be safe to assume a market of around 40% of what has currently been mined, which therefore suggests an investment market of physical bullion, gold bullion, of about $1.5 trillion. So we have the equity market at 85 trillion and the gold market at around $1.5 trillion. We could be out by $0.5 trillion, but what's $0.5 trillion between friends? Now, as of 2018, approximately 1.6 million tons of silver has been recorded as ever being mined, which is the equivalent of 51 billion ounces, which at today's price is approximately $1.2 trillion. But that's silver mined. Now, not all of this represents the current market trade, because a lot of it is in landfill, a lot of it are in devices being used currently, and other industrial products, and therefore not readily available to the investment community. The Silver Institute broadly, and this is supported by other organizations, although they differ a little, but broadly, they estimate that the appropriate figure for silver investment in hard silver terms, physical silver terms, as opposed to ETFs and derivatives, is something like 2.5 billion ounces, which therefore suggests a market value of around $60 billion. So the three figures: equities, 85 trillion, gold, 1.5 trillion, and silver, $60 billion. Now, according to Statista, as of early December 2020, the Bitcoin market capitalization is valued at $350 billion US. Almost 6 times the silver available for investment, and about 1/4 of the available gold investment market. Just think of that for a moment. Now, this is just Bitcoin. Now, we admit it's currently close to all-time highs in value terms. But according to coinmarketcap.com, there are some 2,354 cryptocurrencies that currently have a market capitalization of some sort, plus many hundreds. We gave up at 2,700. Many hundreds more that have been registered but currently has no market capitalization. So rather than try and add up the value of the whole 2,354, because we couldn't find on the site a total value, which is unfortunate, it's worth pointing out that just the top 20, of which Bitcoin has the largest market cap by far, but the top 20 Bitcoin, largest by market capitalization, comes to a value of $518 billion. $518 billion. That's roughly a third of gold and not quite, but 8.5 to 9 times silver. So one has to ask, if monies did not go into cryptocurrencies, and especially Bitcoin, then where would these monies have gone? Now, of course, not all of it will have gone into gold and silver. And of course, it would not, with cryptos having gained so much value, been this figure originally invested. But it's what the market is currently worth now, with some, admittedly, investors sitting on many thousands of percentage gains. So in other words, of this 518 billion capitalization, perhaps not 518 billion was physically invested. The figures are likely to have been considerably smaller than that because of the gains. But nevertheless, this is the value of the market now. Now just imagine, though, just 12% of that $518 billion would be the equivalent of the entire silver bullion market in value terms. And however one cuts it, it is logical to assume that cryptocurrencies have between them, and arguably Bitcoin in particular, stolen, legally though, but stolen investment funds that would otherwise have gone into gold and silver. And that's just taking a 10% or a 12% figure. We suspect it would have been more. Now, in this series, we shall be covering Bitcoin in particular with, of course, reference to other cryptos and showing specific reasons why they should not be ignored. There is no doubt to us that with modern technology, the convenience of mobile applications, or apps, as they say, and the youth of today actually being brought up with this technology from a very early age, we are ever moving closer towards a digital currency. And the global pandemic has to some degree pushed us into that bracket to a large extent. And it will be interesting to see in the months to come what amount of physical currency has been used compared to digital currency and how that compares with other years. The question we all have to ask ourselves is, will this new digital currency, which we are inevitably heading towards, will it be Bitcoin or some other alternative? Now, whatever the name, one thing is for certain. Gold and silver are under threat. Not by us, because we are believers, and quite likely not by the Chinese or the Indian community, because they too are believers, more so than us in the West, in gold and silver. But it is under threat by a new generation of investors who see precious metals as potentially an anachronism and maybe more importantly an inconvenience. And we are already witnessing fund advisors and investment managers advising clients to now take cryptocurrencies and especially Bitcoin seriously within their portfolios, with a view to diversifying them into this new modern regime. Now, in this series, we shall look at all those companies making such recommendations and later how we see this affecting gold and silver demand as a monetary metal moving forward. And also how gold and silver companies have adopted the principle of some form of digital gold currency. So next week we will focus particularly on what is Bitcoin, how it is used, and why younger people in particular are attracted to this investment form. Now, for those interested in this subject, we've provided links below, to our recent Bitcoin videos that we've produced, and also links to some courses and books on the subject of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now, for full transparency, if you purchase any of those, and then primarily through Amazon, we will earn a small commission if you decide to purchase them. But the reason for including them is more important than that, but because they are a relatively good, solid introduction to this subject. Thank you for listening. Please do share your comments below and do not ignore. We seriously stress, please do not ignore this important subject. Not because we're advocates of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but we can see where the direction of investment funds are heading, and eventually, of course, the need and requirement of governments to ensure that as much as possible, if not 100%, of our currency eventually becomes digital. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so, and press the bell sign so you're notified of our videos as and when they're published. And we also produce on now perhaps 3 times a week on the Richard and Greg channel, commentary on the latest news and current events. Until we meet again, thank you for listening. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.